Harrison Ma, my dear friend, I'm so excited to be talking with you again.
Round two, Sandy, round two,
Round
because
two.
one time is not enough.
No. And it's interesting because you know what? You're actually the first repeat guest that I've had.
Am I really?
Yeah.
Wow, I'm so honored, Sandy. I'm so honored.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm honored that you wanted to come back for round
Yeah,
two because you have another book out, right? And
yeah,
we're going to
yeah.
talk about that. Um, yeah, and it's actually, I guess when you're doing this long enough, you get to the point where it's like, oh yeah, I want to have this person on a second time,
Yeah.
you
Yep.
know, because there's other people that I have my eye on. I'm like, okay, I want to bring that person back on this year. And, but yeah, so I'm so excited to be sharing this time with you.
Mm.
And so for the listeners, Harrison runs with wolves. Love this. You're known as a spiritual love coach and host of the Cosmic Love Antenna. And this is so
Mm.
true. You are light and a shadow integrated and personified through a life lived from the heart.
Mm.
Love it.
I think
You are
that's
just,
I think that's been updated since we had our last talk, Sandy.
I
I think
think
that's
so.
shifted. Yeah.
Yeah. Runs with wolves. What is that? Because I
Yeah.
don't remember that from the last time. So what does that
Yeah.
signify for you?
Well, it actually signifies what we were just talking about before we started recording. To me, it signifies stepping out into the unknown, stepping out into a lot of fear, a lot of illusion, a lot of limitation with courage, confidence, and love. And that doesn't just relate to helping other people to do that come and see me, but specifically relates to me, relates to me dealing with my shadows, me dealing with my stuff. So not just so I can start to shine, but so I can help others to do the same.
Yeah, and before we started recording, we started having that conversation, and I was like, you know what, we need to pause this because
Yeah,
this is good stuff, and I love organic
yeah.
conversations that just kind of flow. And I don't know if it's kind of like what's going on right now in the stars, the universe, whatever. I feel like there's a lot that's coming up for a lot of people right now
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you're just one of many people that I've spoken to recently that has said this. My own self, there's been things that have popped up that I'm like,
Mm,
where is this coming from?
mm,
And I think at the end of the day, we're just always growing and evolving, and that's
mm,
just why we're here, right?
mm.
What is your take on it?
Well, I have many takes on that, Sandy. I'll share a couple. So, yes, I think you're correct. And I do think we're living in a very unique period of time at the moment. I think if you look back as just one example of what we've just all come out of in regards to a global pandemic, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's was a once in a lifetime, multi-lifetime event.
Let's hope.
And yeah, let's hope, fingers crossed. But
Right.
in many ways, what that event, I can just speak to it from my experience, that event, that exploration in many ways opened the door for many of us to look at things we haven't looked at for a very long time.
Yeah.
So I think, yes, this unraveling, this sensitivity at the moment is normal, but there is a heightened, let's call it temperature, that is being projected onto the collective and giving everyone a choice. And that choice is to step up and to really start to shine our own lights for maybe the first time in a long time.
I love that. And when the whole pandemic hit, because I know I was on your podcast as well, and I was talking about
Yeah,
this because I had written my book
yeah,
and written the introduction in August of 2019.
yeah.
And I had this kind of foresight, if you will, that wasn't that there was going to be a pandemic or anything like that. It was just that things have to change
Yeah.
on this planet. Like things have to change. And I think that it has rattled up a lot of people. And then there's a lot of people that are still just like with the blinders on and they're like, you know what? I'm in my bubble. I'm living this life. I'm
Mm,
comfortable. Let's not rock the boat. And
mm.
there's still so much of that going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Right. This is probably one of my biggest teachings at the moment that I share a lot about is, on my show, The Cosmic Love Antenna, the reason I call it the Cosmic Love Antenna is because I have come to the understanding that my higher power is one of love, but it's not just love, it's unconditional love.
Mhm.
And what that means in many ways is that whatever you decide to do in relation to what we're talking about now, like step up or not step up, you're
Yeah.
not judged, right?
No,
There's no, and I say this with so much love to all the Christian listeners out there. I grew up Christian. There's no higher power on a cloud outside of you that's ticking boxes and waiting for you to get it wrong. That's an illusion. And
exactly.
I think it's realizing that it's okay to not do anything. But if you do step into it, there's so much there waiting for you to unlock.
Yeah. Yeah. And, for those that have that illusion of checking the boxes, it's okay.
Yeah.
Right. I always say, we all need something to believe in. And as long as you have
Yeah.
something that you believe in that makes sense for you,
Yeah.
nobody, we're not making anybody wrong for their choices. I'm a recovering Catholic myself. And
One of our
one of the
many
many,
similarities. Yeah.
yes. And so, and it's totally okay. And I get that. And, for me personally, I was on a journey for a number of years that um, I think we've talked about this where my ex-husband
Mm,
was driving drunk, hit a motorcycle, and two people tragically lost their life. And he served 7 years in prison. And
mm,
during that time, I lived this very much like fight or flight because I had this little
mm,
boy that I was trying to raise. And it was just this existence of just make it through another day, make it through another day. And I didn't look at anything. I put all the work that I've done for years. Now, granted, it was
mm,
there, but I couldn't even focus on that because my whole existence was surrounded around this little boy that I had to raise into a man,
mm,
you know?
mm,
And so I was one of those people that for a number of years, I just couldn't deal with anything. And
mm.
now here we are. My ex-husband is out of prison and he's served his debt to society. And the past year and a half that he's been out, boy, let me tell you, things are just being thrown my way because I didn't look at things for so long.
Yeah.
And now I'm open and I'm available
Yes.
to receiving, and it's all happening.
That's the key. That's the key right there, right? That's
Yeah,
can I underline that, Sandy, just for people
please.
listening? Right?
Yeah,
It you could very easily just overlook what you just said, right? I'm open to receiving.
yeah,
But in many ways, we spend so much time, and you described it in your own way through your own beautiful story. We spend so much time putting boxes and stories and expectations on how we think our life should unravel. And that may get us a certain way, and that may bring us accolades. That might fill up our ego, but it will hit a wall at a certain step along that path. So what is the alternative to that? The alternative is to, one, release those expectations, release those stories, release those attachments, drop into your heart and replace it with an open-ended intention, right? And it could be
mm,
as simple as, I want to take a step forward today and receive guidance that is for my highest good, right?
yeah,
You can see the difference between that and an expectation, right?
yes,
I often describe it as, an expectation is A plus B equals C. An open-ended intention is A plus B equals X. And what that means is we are now surrendering our beautiful free will over to the divine will that's inside of us that knows so much more than what our mental mind could ever perceive.
yes. Very, very well said. I love that because so often, so much, so many people are living in a state of misery
Yes.
because of all the expectations they place on other people
Yes.
and themselves.
Yes.
Myself included. I'm guilty.
Yeah.
I'm just as guilty of that sometimes. I'm like this high performer, high achiever. And it's like, I expect so much from myself. And until I realize what I'm doing. And I'm like, okay, hold on, stop.
Can I share a quote with you, Sandy,
Please,
that I
please
think
do.
is because this connects to everything we're saying here, and it's one of my favorite quotes, and it's from the powerful Neville Goddard. I'm sure you're a fan or you've read his work, but the quote is, "Your world is defined by your conception of yourself plus your conception of others," and this is my favorite part, the ending, "which is not their conception of themselves." And I get goosebumps when I read this quote because what it shows exactly what you're saying is we're all living in worlds that we have created that aren't the real reality, right? And
Right.
then we, as you said, we fall into suffering. So we have to get into that. This is like a daily habit, just like you brush your teeth, like you go work out, you eat nourishing food. You have to get into the daily habit of testing the stories that you are placing on yourself and you're placing on the people in your world. Because if you, and this just it's so profound to me, if you're not testing the stories that you place on other people, how are you ever going to have an authentic relationship? How are you ever going to connect to their deepest state of love if you keep seeing them as, whatever the story is, as the angry partner or the shameful lover or whatever it is?
We need to dive into that just a little bit more because I know exactly what you're talking about, but I want to make sure that the listeners do. Okay. So, when you say the story that you're placing on them, elaborate on
Yeah.
that when you're placing on another person. I just want to make sure that everybody's clear on this because it's
Yeah.
so important.
Yeah. I'll use you as an example, Sandy, if that's all
Okay.
right. Right.
Go
As
for it.
this podcast and this interview right now as an example.
Okay.
Right. I could very easily place the story onto Sandy that she is this far superior woman that has all of these beautiful accolades, that is on this, compared to me, Harrison, is 100 scales levels above. And suddenly now what I've done is I've placed Sandy on this pedestal that is far above me. And that's not saying that some of those things aren't true. Sandy, you're a beautiful, powerful woman.
Thank you.
But in many ways, what I'm now doing from my perspective is I'm creating this large gap between me and Sandy, where
Right.
I now, either consciously or unconsciously, feel inferior. I
Right.
feel less than. I feel unworthy. I feel invaluable. And Sandy didn't do that. Sandy didn't create that story. I didn't. I projected that onto her. So
Right.
it's that story now creates a state in which I start feeling feelings based off what I've created, right? I automatically start the conversation with Sandy from a place of less than, from a place of I'm not enough unless whatever the story helps me to do. So, that's just one example. Does that
Yeah.
does that make sense?
Totally. And I love how you put that in a very positive light. And thank you for that. Because I think more often than not, many times it's the opposite.
It's the negative. Yeah.
It's the negative that we're projecting onto other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
But
know
they're both
women,
but they're both disastrous, right? It's important to
yes.
see that they're both disastrous, right?
Well,
Both
yeah,
illusions.
of course. I mean, I look back and some of the most amazing people that I've interviewed, I was so intimidated by them
Yeah.
that I probably would have done a much better job in the interview
Yeah.
had I not felt like they were up here and I was down here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
it can be just as disastrous for sure. For sure.
And it's you create separation, right? To put it in the most simplest way possible. You are creating separation. And
Right.
within that separation, a lot of things can come in, a lot of fear, a lot of, like we've already talked about, limiting beliefs, a lot of past pain. So what's the solution to this? The solution, and this is again what I talk about a lot, and we'll probably talk about this later in reference to my book. The solution is to drop from the head, which is the place that is creating these stories, this place that's creating these false realities, and drop into your heart, right? And there's many reasons why that is powerful, but the simplest one I can describe here in relation to this phenomena is the heart doesn't know separation. The heart doesn't know time. It doesn't know distance. It doesn't know this divide. It only knows oneness. It knows connection. It knows coming together. So a simple practice, if you're listening to this and you're noticing you're creating these stories, either positive like I gave, or as Sandy was giving the negative, is to drop into your heart, right? And for me, I'll give one little example here, coming onto this podcast with you, Sandy, because I know that we're friends and we've spent so much time together. How I move from those stories and drop into my heart is I feel into that love that we've already shared. I feel into the love that we've connected to in the conversations that we've had. I feel into, how close I am to you. And automatically those stories that were there now fade away because the love supersedes it.
Mm, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, this is a good segue into your book. So tell us about it.
I would love to, Sandy. So my book is the same name as my podcast, Your Cosmic Love Antenna. And in many ways, one of my intentions was actually for all the people that are listening to my show, that tune in and they don't want to go and listen to all, I think I'm almost up to 150 episodes. The book is a culmination of a lot of the beautiful lessons that I've learned, not just from my own teachings that I've shared on the show, but from speaking to beautiful people like you and other powerful minds on the show. So first of all, it's that. But more deeply, it shares the intention of helping people connect into their spiritual love space, right? That practice that I just shared in regards to breaking through stories, is one of the many things we can learn to do by spending more time in our heart, right? Activating the cosmic love antenna that we all are, right? We aren't just mental thinking beings. We are loving, feeling spiritual beings. And in many ways, what the book helps people to do is to activate that frequency of love that's always been inside of them.
Mm. And activating that frequency is what is so key to really being who you want to be, showing up the way you want to show up. It's all comes down to that frequency. I love it.
Very much so. And I'll add a word, unique frequency, right? Because
Yes.
this is spoken about in many different ways, and how I add my own flair to it is we are all unique expressions of a higher power, right? And that higher power for you could be many names: God,
Right.
Allah, Buddha, Source, Oneness, whatever your name is for it. The thing that they all have in common is we are unique expressions of that source. So if we're unique expressions, the next question is, what does it look like for me to embody that unique frequency? What does it look like to embody that unique frequency of love? And many answers to this question, but how I describe it is we must learn to synchronize our mind, body, and spirit, right? We must learn to move through the illusions, some of which we've talked about here today already, that are blocking us across our mind, body, and spirit from releasing that unique frequency of love. Because it's not a gaining of, it's a moving through the illusions and remembering what's been there the whole time.
Mm, I love that because that's really what it comes down to. We all have that inside of us. And we've just forgotten about it. It's just locked away. So how would you help somebody to get back to that alignment,
Yeah.
if you will, that
Yeah.
frequency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is where the mind, body, and soul synchronizing comes in. And in my book, I break this down into, it's broken down into 3 sections: mind, body, and spirit. And we must tackle it from this angle. I know you do a lot of holistic teaching yourself, my friend, and this is why, right? We can't, in my opinion, from my experience, the answers do not lie in one section. They don't just lie in our spirit. They don't just lie in our mental. They don't just lie in our body. They lie in a culmination of all of it. So we must approach it from a holistic angle. We aren't isolated mechanistic machines. We are a beautiful dynamic system of systems that is moving throughout time and space. And so we must approach it from that angle. So let's get more practical with it. What are some tools that we can apply across those different sections? So I'll give 3 examples. From
Okay.
a mental perspective, it's really starting, and I think I've spoken to you about this on your show, my friend, talking about the inner child, right? Talking about
Yes.
inner child healing and getting to the root of a lot of those stories that we're playing and projecting onto people, right? That would be
Yes.
one practical tool that we could use from a mental perspective. The next, from a physical perspective, and I love speaking about this, and if there's people watching on video, I have the chakra symbols on the top of my
Hmm.
video here, tuning into your body, but specifically tuning into the different energetic centers that hold on to emotion, hold on to trauma, hold on to pain, right?
Right.
There's a reason that your pain around using your voice, you feel it in your throat, you feel it physically in your throat, or you feel a sinking in your stomach, or you feel a tightness in your heart, right? The
Right.
physical, practical awareness of your chakras is a really good tool to dive into. And
Mm.
then finally, across the soulful spiritual level of connecting back into this frequency, coming back into a practice of stillness, right? And
Mm.
this could look like many different ways for many different people: meditation, breath work, being out in nature, but actively cultivating stillness. And let's go a bit deeper, the divine feminine in your life, right? Moments in your day where you're not doing anything and you're just sitting in stillness, because it's often in that stillness a lot of what we've already spoken about, the answers that we're looking for, starts to bubble up.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know I used to be, I used to run a lot and did one marathon, did more half marathons. When I was running, that was when so much would come up for me and ideas and things like
Yeah.
that. And now I just walk. And that's when it comes up.
Yeah.
So yeah. Oh my
You're
gosh.
switching, you're switching off. You're switching off in many ways, right?
Yeah.
You're creating the container for moreness to move through you, right? I do this all the time, right? We're so good at filling the space, right?
Yep.
Filling the space with all the things, because
Yep.
if we don't fill the space, then we're not valuable. We're not ticking the box. And we forget that there's just as much value in this, in the space, in the empty space, as there is in the full space.
Right. Yeah. We just forget about it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So, where can people find your book? And is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you'd like to share with the audience today?
I'll answer the second question first, and then
Okay.
I'll finish with where they can pick up the book. I One of the things I like to promote in regards to connecting deeper into this frequency of love that we've highlighted today, you don't need to wait to feel it in yourself to start to explore it. And what I mean by that is, you can feel it as you listen to other people. As I'm sure you've experienced on your show, Sandy, when you've spoken to other people, other
Mhm.
guests, and
Yes.
you've been in their frequency, been in their energy, right? You feel something as they speak, right?
Yes.
And this is the thing I want to hit on to leave everyone with. In that moment, right, it's very easy for us to fall under the illusion that they are giving us something, that I feel this way because that person's energy is in me. And at a very superficial level, yes, like they are projecting something onto you and you feel it. Yes, that's
Right.
true. But the deeper level I would encourage people to dive into is for you to be able to feel it, there needs to be something inside of you that picks it up, right? This is the like attracts like idea. This is the law of resonance, right? This is all of these understandings. So just to tie this up here, what I'm getting at is if you've yet to dive into your heart and to feel this frequency of love that you are, one of the ways you can learn to remember it is to notice how you feel around people that activate you, right? People that
Mm,
inspire you, people that get
yeah.
you going within topics that you like, right? And
Right.
reminding yourself in that moment when you are activated is that this is me. The reason that I feel so excited right now about what that person is saying is because there's something inside of me that wants to be birthed, right? There's something inside of me that is being stimulated by
Yeah.
their love, and that's me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So beautifully said. So beautifully said. Wow. And where can they find the book and where can people learn more about you?
Well, firstly, Sandy, thank you for having me on the show.
Oh,
And I,
my
you know,
pleasure.
I'm sure, I don't know if you've talked about this on your show, but we're in a mentor group together, and
Yes.
it's been such a lovely expansion of our relationship and connecting to you deeper. So I just want to say thank you for having me. Thank you for just being a bright light in my world and inspiring me in all the ways. For people
Oh,
that want to know more about my work, the book, Your Cosmic Love Antenna, you can find on Amazon. Just search it. It's available in, I think, all countries. You can also go to my website, Harrison Meagher, that's Meagher spelled MEAGHER.com, and you can find out all about me. And also, I'm on all social media at Harrison Meagher.
fantastic. Thank you, my friend. And we'll just have to make this an annual event
Let's do it. Let's
every
do it.
time you have a book comes out, because I know there's a lot more in store for
Yep.
you.
Yep. Deal.
All right. Thank
Love
you.
you, my
Thank
friend.
you.
Thank you.
Love you. And thank you for listening, everyone.